So recently I did an unboxing of 3 new parts that are going to be going into my new main gaming slash programming slash benchmarking, testing, and pretty much everything rig. We have the Asus Z170 Pro for a motherboard with its included fancy I/O shield, an Intel i7-6700K, and 2 sticks of Trident Z, G-Skill Trident Z, DDR4 3200 megahertz, 16 gigabytes per stick times 2 of DDR4 RAM with a cast latency of 14. So, without further ado, let's get to building. One quick thing I should note is my current build, it's not a new build, it's a current build, so the existing motherboard, processor, and everything will have to be torn out. That will be set aside and we'll do something with that later. And I'm not using a stock cooler. I knew the 6700K didn't come with a stock cooler. I planned for that, and I don't plan on buying one, but I have an NZXT Kraken X61 that's in it, so that'll have to be readjusted for the new processor. So without further ado, let's get to building. So my personal rig that I use all the time, and that we also use for a lot of our bench testing and our main compiling and editing work here at A&T Media Group, has been around for 5 years, and it was running some somewhat budget parts at the time, but they were in an okay price range. I put a old Gigabyte H77 series motherboard in it. There's an Intel i3 2nd gen in it with 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM at 1600 megahertz, and it's been doing okay. For 5 years now, it's kind of chugged along, and the slight upgrades that we've done to it have definitely helped. I originally had an old PNY GeForce 210 in it for a video card, but a year and a half ago, I upgraded that to an MSI Radeon R7 250, and it's by no means a great overpowered graphics card, but it's a whole heck of a lot better than the old GeForce 210, and it's a pretty darn good budget card since I picked it up for $80. And it works for what I need it for. Also, about a year and a half ago, I believe it was a little before I upgraded the video card, I threw an SSD in it, and that was one of the best simple purchases I've ever done. And the thing runs wonderfully. There's no real lag unless I'm loading something from one of my spare hard drives off of it or anything. It boots really fast, it runs fast, and it was all around holding up for 5 years. But lately, here at A&T Media Group, it's been slowing down a bit because the last few weeks we've been getting a bit more and more power hungry. We've needed to compile more things, we've needed to edit more things, we've needed to do more bench testing and processing and editing in general. And this computer that's held out strong for 5 years has started to slow down. It's by no means slow. It was by no means slow, and it was still running great, but it was starting to show that it was kind of slowing down. It wasn't running as fast as it has been for 5 years, simply because we've been throwing more at it. So we decided it was time for an upgrade. So, especially since this is also my personal computer, I went ahead with the best of the best. I threw an Intel i7-6700K in it, and it's because it's overclockable. I actually have it clocked right now at 4.4 gigahertz instead of the base clock of 4, and it runs great. It handles everything I can possibly throw at it. I also upgraded the RAM to DDR4, as long as I had to upgrade the motherboard to accommodate the new processor socket type anyway. And I went from DDR3 to DDR4. I doubled the speed from 1600 megahertz to 3200, and I quadrupled the capacity from 8 to 32 gigabytes. And the combination of these two can pretty much handle every single possible thing I can throw at it. In fact, there's so much extra RAM left over for what we need, I can afford to use some as a RAM disk. And that's great because that allows us to cut down on the time it takes to do editing tasks and bench testing quite a bit, because I don't have to wait for stuff to save and load onto mechanical hard drives. I can load it straight into RAM, and then I can offload it from the RAM disk later. That saves us a tremendous amount of time. And To accommodate the RAM and processor, as long as I had to change the motherboard anyway, it wouldn't have been too hard to find a DDR4 motherboard with the LGA 1151 socket type. But I went ahead with the Asus Z170 Pro simply because of the features that it had. It had everything we need now, but it also had, just because of the wide range of different slots and ports on it, it'll be future-proofed for quite some time. In fact, there's an M2 slot on it that I'm hoping to take use of pretty quickly. There's USB 3.1 ports on it already. In fact, one of those ports is even a Type-C port, so I'm looking forward to using those in the future. Hopefully we'll give some sort of review or some bench test later when we get a hold of some devices like that. But all around, this rig has been helping us tremendously. It's cutting down on the workload, and it was quite the hefty purchase at about $750 for 3 parts, but it was well worth it, and I hope to see this computer last us quite a while in the future before it really needs another upgrade. So that's why we upgraded, and hopefully it'll help us, and we'll see how that goes from there.
So that wraps up today's build log. I can honestly say I enjoyed having the old parts in it for the last 5 years, but I can very honestly say that I am not going to miss them one bit, and I look forward to seeing what this upgrade has in store, and hopefully it'll provide some great use to us, and it won't be needing another major upgrade for quite a few more years. So hopefully we'll be back soon with some sort of performance testing and benchmarks. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned.